You're an eBay seller and you need to find things to sell. I live in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's about 800,000 people. There are plenty of places around here to keep me in items to sell year round, but I really only need to work about 3 months a year going to garage sales in the very middle of summer because that gives me all the inventory I need pretty much for the whole year. I do have some neighbors, elderly neighbors, make great consignment clients because they have good stuff and it's quality. Tell all your elderly neighbors you have a reselling business that helps people downsize their home. So if I were to run low in the dead of winter, I've got all these neighbors around me. And I'm talking, there's a lot of elderly people where I live. I live on the same block I grew up on decades ago. Now, I don't live in the same house, but I live 4 houses from where I live. And I knew all of the neighbors back then when I was young and they were younger. Now, I'm older, not very old, but I'm older, and they're really old. And they trust me, and I have things all year that I can sell for them if I run low. They're always trying to give me a bunch of stuff to sell. And I'm like, no, I don't have room right now. Hang on to your stuff a while longer. So I don't have any problem finding things to sell. Do you have any problems finding things for? Maybe you live in a very small location. Maybe you live in a very tiny town. Maybe you live in the middle of nowhere. How in the world can you find things to sell? Well, I can tell you because I'm an expert at this. Well, Greg, I hear you say, well, Greg, how can you be an expert? You live in Tulsa. You live in a town that's almost got 1 million people in the metro area. I know, but for 20 years, I lived in a town that literally had one building downtown. You would have to drive 2 miles on dirt roads to get to our home. The one building in town was always locked, except for once a month when the mayor and the residents would meet. And almost every month, no one showed up except the mayor, and he couldn't have a meeting. So he just kept it locked, and there was never any town activity. It was wonderful. What a great government that was. Now, I was 20 miles from where I live now in Tulsa, but 20 miles, it's not like you can just run to the thrift store or run to a garage sale anytime you feel like it. Going even 20 miles, that's a little bit of an outing because you've got to plan other things. It's not convenient even to live 20 miles from a big town when you live in the middle of nowhere. I literally could walk out any of our 4 doors facing all 4 directions. We live this far from everybody, and I could shoot any gun I wanted. No one cared. And so I did. Often. So I've been in your shoes. I literally probably lived in a much less populated, smaller town than you do now, probably. And so I know what you're going through. I have not been spoiled by living in Tulsa the last 5 or 6 years. I know what it's like, and I can tell you, you can find plenty to resell. I made the following video in my car a while back that I think will help you. Let's sit back and watch, shall we?
Can you see me? That sun I know is bright, but it's not bright to me because I'm looking the other way. I've been asked a few times about something I was just thinking about. That question was, we live in a small town. I feel your pain. We used to live in a very small town, 20 miles from Tulsa, the large town, which is where I live now. I realize that 20, 25 miles is not as far from a larger metro area as a lot of you may live. There's no way you live in a more rural place than we live, but I realize you might live further away from a real town. And a lot of you say you've only got 1 thrift store, maybe 2, within regular driving distance. You know, anything's within driving distance. Even Hawaii, once they get that bridge built. But if you've only got 1, maybe 2 thrift stores, and in the wintertime especially with no garage sales or yard sales, where do you get things? What do you do just for day to day? We need to source. We need more things in our inventory. We've got to go buy things today. Eventually our death pile is going to run out. What are we going to do? And if you've only got 1 or 2 thrift stores, and that's pretty much all you have, and let's face it, a thrift store or a set of garage sales, thrift stores, those are great places to source. When we really need items fast, we can usually find them there if they're available. So what do? You walk into a thrift store and you've only got 1 and you're not finding anything you are looking for. You're not finding anything you're expert in. What do? You become expert in what the thrift store has. And I'm just positive the thrift store is going to have the following: a lot of ladies' clothing. A lot of ladies' clothing. So why on the world, if that's what you have available, learn it. Start doing comps. Take a new section each time you go and just start doing comps on each one. Look at brand, all of that. Learn about this stuff. Take pictures of brands and styles. If you're a man, take pictures of, a whole section of stuff, and take different pictures of different sections and learn about things. Jeans are never going to go out of style. Certain jeans come in and out of style, but jeans are never going to go out of style completely, especially not fairly traditional jeans. Learn about that. You're going to make money off that. If you've only got one thrift store, if I only had one thrift store, I would have a ton of ladies' clothing. I'd have a few men's clothing. I'd have whatever the thrift store has, and I would learn about it. So how do you make money off ladies' clothing if you don't know anything about it? Well, why are you in this group? It's to learn. How do you learn about ladies' clothing? You start doing research, start doing therapy. Go and just take pictures of things that you normally would never consider going to that section, and go home, take your pictures, look at the labels, get close-ups of labels, shoes, everything, and just start learning about what you saw at that thrift store. Don't stand there and do a bunch of research in the store if you don't know anything about it. Learning is really better to do whenever you're in a quieter place and you've got a full computer in front of you, not your phone. Learn about what is available to you. More clothing is sold on earth than any other single good, and by far more ladies' clothing is sold than men's or children's clothing. Learn what is available to you. If you're in the middle of a place that has tons of bicycle trails, you're probably going to see a lot of bicycle things at your thrift store, at your town, in garage sales. Whatever your town specializes in, you're going to find a lot of that thing that you don't even really think about, and you think no one would want that because there are millions of them all around. Well, there aren't millions of those all around everywhere. There's just millions of those in your town, or you think there is. I live in Oklahoma. A lot of Indian stuff. Maybe that's what I should be learning more about. I just, one, have zero desire to know anything about it, but two, I've got plenty available to me. But if I were in Western Oklahoma, there's just a lot of Native American stuff down there. I'm going to learn a lot more about it because that's what I have to sell. And it sells. The right stuff sells. The right ladies' clothing sells. Can you sell an Old Navy blouse? Can you sell an Old Navy blouse that is very common? Well, you can sell anything, but should you sell it? I don't know. So do you just ignore all old ladies? Old ladies. Ignore all old ladies. Go ahead and tell everyone that's what I said. No, you can ignore all Old Navy clothing, I guess, if you think, well, the first one I saw, I looked up and I researched it, and wow, they're selling for 50 cents on eBay. Well, keep looking. If you probably have a lot of stuff like Old Navy, if you've got a lot of ladies' clothing at your one thrift store, there is a lot of Old Navy that sells for a lot of money. Not all of it, not most of it. Become an expert on those fewer things, on the 10% that do. This is what you do. What do you buy? You buy what's available. When the bank robber was asked, why do you rob banks? He says, that's where the money is. Whenever I ask you, why are you buying ladies' clothing at the only thrift store in town? You're going to proudly say, because that's what they have the most of. And I want to redistribute my little town's clothing for ladies to ladies all across the world, because that's what I'm good at. And you can become good at any of this stuff.